Good afternoon, Rotarians.
Good afternoon, Jim.
Good, thank you. Thank you again, Bob, for leading that. Welcome to the August 21st meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm your president, Tim Lowitz. I've made it through 6 meetings. I haven't been impeached or asked to resign yet, so I'll take that as a success. Thanks to new board member Scott Bennett for greeting today. Thank you, Scott. He was joined by someone else last minute. I don't know who that person was, but we let him into the player to be named later. We let him into lunch anyway. Thank you, Skeet. Appreciate it. Thanks to Colleen Rogers Messenger for doing and volunteering to do our moment of inspiration and the Pledge of Allegiance and four-way test. And so I'll invite her up here to do that, and then we will greet each other. So please stand.
Tim. So today I offer you inspiration from a global health leader I deeply admire, although she doesn't know I'm sharing her words. I believe that healthcare is a fundamental human right, not a privilege reserved for the fortunate few. Quality care should reach every corner of the globe, regardless of geographic location or socioeconomic status. Access to quality medical care does more than save lives. It ignites economic development, empowers communities, and promotes social justice. When individuals are healthy, they can pursue education, participate in the workforce, and contribute meaningfully to society. Dr. Maya Chung's sentiments echo Rotary's enduring commitment to advancing health equity, strengthening communities, and building peace through service. Her words challenge us to think globally and act boldly, hallmarks of Rotary's mission to create lasting change. Service above self should not be passive. It's purposeful, relentless, and transformative. Let's carry this energy into our own service here in Des Moines and beyond. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the forward.
Is the truth, is fair to all concerned, will it build goodwill and better friendships, will it be beneficial to all concerned.
And now greet your fellow Rotarians.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Dan. Thank you.
Nice to
we welcome, we have several guests with us today to see Dr. Chung's speech. So several at the front table here that I got the pleasure to meet. Joyce Chapman, our former member and past president of our club, a guest of Colleen Rogers Messenger, is here with us. Joyce, good to see you. Andy Garman from Wixted and Company. Some like me might recognize him as the former sports director at KCCI, another guest of Colleen Rogers Messenger. Martha Stevenson, wife of member Steve Stevenson. Martha. In the back, we have Dr. Bucci Ukubiala, retired pediatric surgeon from Lane Children's Hospital, a guest of Dr. Doug Dorner. And then finally, Shelley Kodner from the Iowa Waste Exchange, a guest of the club. Good to see you, Shelley, and we'll fill you in more on Shelley's role here with Kitty's move here in a second. So thank you to all our guests. I think we have a birthday, is that right?
Yeah, that's on up.
Oh, it's not on the slide. Okay. Steve Sipple. Steve, are you here? Steve, happy birthday, Steve. We also have a flyer on your table. So if you look in the middle of your table, we have a flyer, and thank you to Tej Dewan for sponsoring the table flyer today. This is for the upcoming Culture All Ball on September 20th, I believe. And we will have Sherry Gupta from Culture All. She'll be speaking to our club on September 18th, so look forward to that. Reminder, you can also sponsor a table flyer for a $50 donation to the Rotary Club Foundation. So thank you, Tej, for supporting the foundation and for the flyer. All right, as I teased earlier, oh, actually, we'll do Where in the World.
Sorry.
Yeah, you have it out, script's out of order, Kitty.
Sorry.
No, so where are we at? Okay, yes, we have two Where in the Worlds. We have Deanne and her husband, Brian Thompson, who helped Kitty take down the sign at our Rotary office. Thank you to Brian, because Kitty would have been stuck without him trying to figure out how to take the sign down. So that was locally here. And then our other Where in the World is our own Michael Wolnerman in Japan. So the upper left there is Michael in a kimono. I don't know who doesn't want to see that. And then we have some family time with Godzilla and with sumo wrestlers and some Shakey's Pizza all the way over in Japan. So Michael, thank you for sharing the photos with us. All right, so now I've teased it twice. If you noticed in the newsletter, we had some big news with the club. Kitty has been doing yeoman's work, moving the Rotary office after 9 years on Fleur Drive. We're downsizing from about 750 square feet to just over 60 square feet. So Kitty's been hard at work sorting and packing and finding new homes for a lot of things. Again, you saw the sign having to come down, that sort of stuff. Jordan has been a great help as well, so thank you, Jordan. Kitty started the move this past Monday, and she'll be settled into the new location, which is at RDG Planning and Design at 301 Grand Avenue here in downtown. She'll be there by next Friday. And a big thank you to Susan Judkins. Susan, are you here today?
She's in Ireland.
Oh, she's in Ireland. I walked right into that one. Thank you to Susan, though, for arranging us to connecting us for the free nonprofit space that we'll have at RDG. So that'll be a good, huge cost savings on our budget. Also, thank you to Eric Dickinson and MBS Records Management for helping with the storage of some of our things we had to move when we downsized, and for helping Kitty with a hand truck that moved those things. And then our guest, as I teased, Shelley Kodner from Iowa Waste Exchange, has been working with Kitty to keep our unneeded furniture that we had at the office out of the landfills and into the hands of other nonprofits. So thank you, Shelley, for helping us give some other nonprofits some valuable furniture. So if anyone has any questions about the move, please see me or Kitty. But again, she will be in that office by next Friday. All right. Good timing, Joel.
Finally.
Yeah, see, exactly. I had to build up the anticipation, Sean, a little bit. It's time for Rotary Law and Disorder, everyone's favorite segment. So does anyone remember the MTV series Jackass? Okay. So in 1997, a gentleman named Robert Kraft, and I actually don't know, I was researching, I couldn't find out which state this was in, but Robert Kraft legally changed his name to Jackass. And this was in 97, he was, at the time, a very honorable cause, he was trying to raise awareness about drunk driving, apparently calling people like that jackasses. So, however, a few years later, Mr. Kraft, formerly known as Mr. Jackass now, revealed his true colors because when the MTV show took off, Mr. Kraft sued Viacom, the owner of the rights to the show, for $10 million for plagiarism and defamation. And I love this part, saying the show damaged his reputation and good name. The case was dismissed, but in researching this, I think the best part of this was, you all remember Johnny Knoxville, the leader of the Jackass crew, I guess, was quoted as saying, "I can't wait to get served the papers. What could be more American than just suing the living SHIT out of someone for no reason at all?" So thank you, Johnny, for contributing to Rotary Law and Disorder for the week. And now, our own Steve Stevenson will introduce our keynote speaker. Steve?
Well, thank you. I'm really excited. Today you're going to learn about one of the most impactful children's charities that you've probably never heard of. But today you'll get an education. Dr. Maya Chung is currently a surgeon at Yale University and is the Chief Medical Officer for Kids Operating Room, the world's leading children's surgery charity. Dr. Chung graduated from Dartmouth Medical School and completed her general surgery residency at Yale New Haven Hospital. She was the first Yale Global Surgery Research Fellow with research focused on building capacity and medical education projects in pediatric surgery in Uganda. While still in her residency at Yale, she started working with a group that would become Kids Operating Room, also known as Kids OR. Since their founding in 2017, she served on the International Advisory Board and in 2021 was appointed their global leader for surgery. In December of 2023, she became their chief medical officer for Kids OR, as well as for Global Hospital, their commercial subsidiary, which develops innovative healthcare infrastructure and solar-powered solutions for low-resource settings. Dr. Chung's work has taken her to remote villages, urban slums, disaster-stricken regions where she has amassed extensive experience and addressed healthcare disparities across diverse populations. Let me return just for a minute to the first line of Dr. Chung's bio that referred to Kids OR as the world's leading children's surgery charity. That is not hyperbole. This is an extraordinary organization that has developed a model that has been successful in some of the most difficult operational environments across the globe. Not only have they been successful in building and equipping pediatric surgery units, Kids OR has developed a model that combines education and local partnerships to do the really hard part. Make 100 sites, often in extreme environments, both resilient and sustainable. So now we'll hear, please welcome Dr. Maya Chung to Rotary.
Thank you, Dr. Stevenson, for that introduction, and to Tim and all of you for the opportunity to present today. It is especially meaningful for me to be back in Iowa, having grown up just down the road in Ames, and it really was here that my earliest sense of community and service was shaped. And I hope you'll indulge me today as I tell you a little bit about my story from the Midwest to the work I'm involved in globally. So my journey into global health really began in childhood. Although I grew up in the Midwest, I spent a year of elementary school living in China. And one of my most vivid memories from that time was being 7 years old, sitting in a really busy hospital in Beijing with a doctor draining a cyst from my wrist with a huge needle. And I can still remember that fear, and I swore I would never set foot in a hospital again. But life, I guess, has a way of surprising us. So during college, despite an intention to study architecture, a series of events, especially September 11th, really pushed me to think about the world beyond our borders and sparked my interest in global issues, which led me to work in the Middle East, the National Institutes of Health, and ultimately to medical school. And it was in medical school in 2010 when the earthquake hit Haiti that was really for me a turning point. I became involved in the disaster relief work we were doing, helping to coordinate darkness response. This photograph shows a tent hospital in Port-au-Prince, and in the aftermath, every available space became a ward, and limited resources dictated outcomes. I had never witnessed need on this scale before, and it was here that I really first began to think deeply about access to care. This led me to spending a year during medical school in Peru, treating tuberculosis patients in Lima, delivering babies in the central jungle, and working on a medical boat on the Amazon. By the time I applied for surgical residency, I knew that global health needed to be a part of my career, but it was at Yale that I began to really understand that surgery could be more than clinical work. It could be a powerful tool for strengthening health systems worldwide. So after finishing my training, as Dr. Stevenson mentioned, I stayed on his faculty, and it was an incredible opportunity not only to have access to the most advanced surgical technology in the world, but also to teach and mentor residents and medical students. Education has always been incredibly central to my career, and working with the next generation of surgeons has been one of my greatest privileges. But I did keep asking myself, how could I have a greater impact? And that question led me in December of 2023 to shift from being a full-time clinician to a part-time surgeon when I joined Kids Operating Room as the Chief Medical Officer. I do still maintain a faculty appointment at Yale and operate at our Veterans Hospital a few times a month. The VA itself is a constant reminder that challenges are not limited to low resource settings in terms of limited equipment, strained systems, and delays in accessing care. And that understanding and strengthening surgical systems globally also strengthens the way we deliver care locally. And that brings me to the question some of you might be asking, which is, why should this matter here in Iowa, when we know there are pressing needs at home? But the truth is that thinking globally doesn't compete with local priorities, it strengthens them. And as a surgeon during the COVID-19 pandemic, I saw this firsthand. We faced resource limitations we had never expected before in the US, shortages of equipment, limited PPE that we reused for weeks at a time, and even tents built in the hospital parking lot to care for the overflow of patients. In those moments, we had to make hard choices about who should receive care and who would have to wait. But the lessons that I have learned in global surgery, how to adapt, how to innovate, how to deliver safe care with limited resources, and how to be even more resilient, became the very skills I relied on at Yale to take care of patients. So you can see that the skills one gains from global surgery are not abstract. And the question then becomes, is surgery vital? Does it matter on a global scale? Well, the Lancet Commission and me would say yes. They estimate that 30% of the global burden of disease is treatable with surgery, yet 87% of surgical needs in low resource settings are not met. This means that 1.75 billion children globally lack access to safe surgical care. This isn't just a health crisis, it's a barrier to education, productivity, and prosperity worldwide. And the scale of the impact is staggering. Surgically treatable conditions kill over 4 times more people per year than HIV, TB, and malaria combined. Over 4 times more people. But 40% of global health funding still goes to infectious diseases, and only 2% is dedicated to non-communicable diseases, which include surgery. And this isn't just a health issue, it's an economic one. By 2030, lack of access to surgery will cost low and middle income countries an estimated $12.3 trillion in lost output. That's up to 2% of the GDP each year. A hernia or a clubfoot can keep a child out of school, limit future earning potential, and trap families in poverty. And when children make up such a large portion of the population, the consequences multiply. In Uganda, you can see that half the population is under the age of 15 and 77% is under the age of 25. So compare this to the population pyramid in the US, and you can see that a high burden of surgical disease doesn't just devastate families, it undermines entire economies and societies. Stronger, healthier populations abroad means stronger economies, more stable trading partners, and fewer humanitarian crises that ultimately reach our shores. One of the biggest myths in global surgery is that it's too expensive. In fact, research shows it's among the most cost-effective interventions in health. The WHO ranks essential procedures like trauma care, C-sections, and treatment for birth defects and hernias on par with or even cheaper than vaccines and HIV treatment, at just $6 to $33 per healthy year of life gained. So the question isn't whether we can afford to invest in global surgery, it's whether we can afford not to. In 2015, I was working in Uganda in an overflowing pediatric surgical ward. A young mother came in with her newborn baby that was born with its intestines outside its body. She traveled for many hours by bus to bring her child to the only place in the entire country that could possibly treat her child. This is a condition, when seen in the US, is easily treatable and almost everyone survives. It doesn't require much in terms of resources. But unfortunately for this mother, by the time she arrived, it was too late. In global health, we often talk about the S components: the staff, space, stuff, and systems. Near this mother and countless others, there was no staff, no space, no stuff, and no system that could help save her child. And that experience in Uganda stayed with me. It showed me in the most painful, vivid way what could happen when there's no access to care. So that brings me really to why I'm here in Iowa today, chatting with you. Because the story of the young mother in Uganda is not just about global health. It's about what we value as communities, how we respond when children are in need, whether they're here at home or halfway across the world. Here in Des Moines, if a child needs surgery, parents know a hospital will be there. That safety net gives families peace of mind, and that is something most of us have rarely even stopped to think about. But around the world, life looks different. If a child needs something simple like a hernia repair or a broken bone set, surgical care often isn't available. And that can mean a lifetime of disability or even death. And that's where Kids Operating Room comes in. As Colleen said, the belief that every child, no matter if they're born in this Kenyan refugee camp or here in Des Moines, deserves a chance at life and health. Compassion isn't a finite resource, it's a muscle that we can strengthen. When we care for children everywhere, we teach our own kids empathy, equity, and shared humanity, the same values that drive all of us to improve our communities here at home. So when we step back, the picture is clear. The lack of safe surgical care isn't just a health issue. It's a crisis that keeps children out of school, takes away their childhoods, limits opportunities, especially for women, and weakens entire societies and economies. But it doesn't have to be this way. So our mission is simple but ambitious: to ensure that every child, no matter where they're born, has access to safe surgery. We don't send short-term missions, we build infrastructure, we train local teams, and strengthen health systems from within. We work with global partners to identify areas of high need and low resources. Even when patients are able to reach a healthcare facility, hospital infrastructure is often outdated, or the hospitals lack basic supplies, equipment, or simply the space to treat patients. And we know that overcrowded hospitals with patients unable to get timely care has the downstream effects of exacerbating hunger, prohibiting education and employment, and contributing to societal unrest. This is a picture of me operating in Uganda, and if you compare it to the picture I showed earlier of me in the US, the contrast is stark. There's no well-stocked surgical cabinet in the corner, the instruments are outdated and often broken, the sterilization and infection control are far from ideal. The anesthetic machine you see is decades old, offering only the most basic monitoring, and on this day we actually ran out of oxygen and had to cancel the cases we had planned. This is the reality for so many providers and patients in these settings. The skill and commitment are there, but the basic tools to save lives are not. While donated equipment often comes from a place of good intentions, the reality is that much of it arrives outdated, out of warranty, and impossible to service. Many hospitals don't have trained biomedical engineers, and even when they do, replacement parts can be hard to come by. The result is, unfortunately, equipment graveyards like this one scattered across continents. We're dedicated to solving this glaring gap in global health by installing state-of-the-art, child-friendly operating rooms and providing accompanying biomedical engineering support. Our designs are intentional. We recognize that children are often awake and scared when they're entering the OR. So we create spaces that shift their focus away from the intimidating machines towards vibrant, reassuring surroundings. This is one example from Zambia. On the left, you can see the outdated, under-equipped operating room, and on the right, the transformation. Not just colorful artwork, but entirely new infrastructure. A modern operating room table, surgical lights, an anesthetic machine, and essential equipment. And structural renovations like new floors and walls strengthen infection control and reduce post-operative infections, ensuring safer surgery for every child. We also invest in waiting rooms for families, post-operative recovery spaces, and patient wards for the entire experience. But building new operating rooms isn't enough, especially if the power goes out. One of the biggest barriers isn't just a lack of space or equipment, but reliable power. Nearly 1 billion people worldwide rely on health facilities with no or limited unstable power. For surgery, even a brief outage can be catastrophic. So we developed our solar surgery system not only to ensure that every operating room has a reliable primary power supply, but also to reduce costs for hospitals and decrease the carbon footprint of surgery. This solar install photo is from the Kakuma refugee camp in northern Kenya. It's the 3rd largest refugee camp in the world. Kakuma means nowhere in Swahili, yet for the more than 200,000 refugees that live here, it's their only reality. Shockingly, 61% of Kakuma's population is under the age of 18. This is Jabril and Doc, both are refugees from South Sudan. Jabril was born with a hernia that made eating painful and difficult. He was in the hospital almost every week, missing so much school that he fell far behind his classmates. Doc was born with 2 club feet and was completely unable to walk. For years, he relied on others to carry him everywhere. Both of their conditions would have limited their lives forever. With the installation of the pediatric operating room in Kakuma, both received the surgeries they needed, and their transformations were life-changing. Today, Jabril is healthy, growing, and thriving in school, and Doc can run and play soccer with his friends. He even dreams of becoming a doctor someday so that he can help others. And as we think about the challenges of providing surgery in places like Kakuma, it's important to remember that it isn't unique to refugee camps. It's the daily reality in many places across low and middle income countries. This photo shows a very typical example of what we begin with, a working operating room. This space doubled as a storage room and a staff changing area, but most critically, there was no anesthetic machine, meaning that every operation was performed with the patient partially awake and under only local anesthetic. This is another site in Malawi, again, a functioning operating room, but one where most of the equipment was outdated and barely usable. Before Kids OR support, more than 80% of our partner sites were missing the most basic equipment to safely care for children: working operating tables, reliable lights, appropriate breathing tubes, and instruments small enough for kids. And this is where we attempt to make the difference. This is the same site after installation. When the right equipment is provided, everything changes. The number of children who can be treated increases. Younger children can finally receive the care they need, and surgical complications such as infections and even mortality rates decrease. Good quality equipment means safer surgery, fewer disabilities, more lives saved. But it also means children can return to school, mothers can return to work, and families can thrive. Ripple effects that will be felt for generations. But infrastructure alone is not enough. Surgery is only possible, thankfully, with people. So in some of the countries we work, there might be 0 or 1 pediatric surgeon for the entire country. So that's why investing in people is just as critical as investing in infrastructure. So far, Kids Operating Room has awarded 69 full scholarships across 19 sub-Saharan countries and provided over 1,000 training opportunities for doctors, nurses, and biomedical engineers, including the first pediatric surgeons in countries like Burundi and South Sudan, to build teams that will safely sustain surgery for decades to come. 8 years ago, when I started working with Kids Operating Room, we started with a single pediatric operating room in Uganda. And today we've grown to 103 operating rooms across 37 countries, including some of the world's most challenging places like Congo, Sudan, Afghanistan, Haiti, and the Kakuma refugee camp. With With the proper tools in place, we've now created the capacity for over 650,000 children to receive care and the capacity for over 200,000 children to receive care every year. This translates into almost 10 million years of disability averted and an economic benefit of nearly $18 billion. In 2018, we set a goal of 100 operating rooms by 2030, but we reached it a little early. So now we've set our sights to another 100 operating rooms by 2030. And in the time I have left, I'd like to share with you just a couple of our upcoming projects. The first one is at the St. Nicholas Children's Hospital in Lviv, Ukraine. With the tax on the power grid complex, especially in the winter months, images like this photo, which was published in AP, of surgeons operating by flashlight are not uncommon. Since the start of the invasion, more than half of Ukraine's 7.5 million children have been displaced, most of them moving west, causing surgical demand to increase nearly threefold during the last 2 years. That's Stas. Stas was 12 and asleep in his bed when a rocket hit his bedroom in Kharkiv. He suffered a brain injury, severe burns, and was in a coma for a week. But against all odds, he survived thanks to the incredible team at St. Nicholas and their colleagues. But even with extraordinary medical teams, the conditions they're working in are far from safe. Many of the operating rooms still rely on outdated Soviet-era infrastructure. At St. Nicholas, surgical instruments must be carried across the street to be sterilized, adding hours to urgent cases and increasing the risk of infection. Some operating rooms don't have proper ventilation, which means children are at higher risk of postoperative complications, and families wait in bleak, crumbling spaces. This is not the environment that those children or their families deserve. So we're installing 6 state-of-the-art solar-powered operating rooms at St. Nicholas, which is the largest single project we've ever undertaken. It's fully equipped with modern ventilation and specialized pediatric surgical tools to create the capacity for more than 12,000 children per year. Thanks to many incredible partners, including the Bethesda, Maryland Rotary Club, in collaboration with the Lviv, Ukraine Rotary Club, these operating rooms are set to open on October 10th, marking a powerful testament to what international collaboration can achieve for children in crisis. We're also thrilled to partner with world-renowned Brazilian artist Ramiro Brito to open 2 new pediatric operating rooms in Brazil, in 2 cities where millions of children are relying on an overwhelmed and under-resourced medical system, where surgeons are without the proper equipment, and some are even resorting to making their own surgical equipment to care for children. Ramiro has generously donated his artwork to be integrated into the operating rooms, but to bring the projects fully to life, we still need committed partners to help make this a reality. Even as we grow our presence in South America, our commitments to Africa and Asia remain steadfast. In countries like Mozambique, the scale of need is almost unfathomable. On the left, what you see is a high-risk pregnancy birthing house, and on the right, the emergency procedure room. Due to time constraints, I won't go into the details, but having addressed the critical need of power through our solar surgery system, we're now turning our attention to the global crisis of reliable oxygen, especially for patients undergoing surgery, and we're working with NASA and American Oxygen to field test NASA technology originally developed for the space shuttle, which I think is the definition of a low-resource setting, at our global hub in Scotland and at a children's hospital in Zambia. I've been so honored to be here with you today. Rotary has always believed in service above self and in building bridges that connect local service to global impact. Supporting surgery for children abroad does not mean turning away from the challenges here. It means extending Iowa's spirit of community care to the wider world, knowing that healthier children everywhere make for a healthier, stronger, and more peaceful world for all of us. People sometimes think they need to do something huge to make a difference, but that's not the case. Progress is built on small, meaningful actions that together can create extraordinary change, and we invite you to be a part of that journey. There are so many ways to be involved. Please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Colleen, longtime Iowan Rotarian. These QR codes will take you to our LinkedIn profiles or to our website. We'd love to chat with you more about our work. Thank you all so much for your time. I'm happy to answer questions. Yes, sir.
Dr. Sean, thank you for your presentation, and congratulations. Thank you for all the work that you do. Could you comment a little bit about the change in Americans' financing for USAID, the WHO, that kind of thing? What kind of an impact are you seeing around the world on global health, and what impact are you seeing for kids overall?
Yeah, absolutely. unfortunate that this is the discussion we're having, I guess, in the world based on where I'm coming from. I think one of the big things we've seen is that a lot of programs that were funded that especially relied on incoming teams, constant aid, are ones that have been really drastically affected. They've had to completely shut down, hospitals no longer can pay their staff. One of the things that we've seen, which has really been validating for the model that we use, is the fact that we're trying to support local teams. So Haiti is a great example. We have 2 operating rooms in Haiti because of the ongoing conflict as well as the withdrawal of a lot of global aid funds there. Most aid organizations had to stop working, so there was a real exodus. Because our operating rooms are staffed by local Haitian teams, they're 2 of the only ORs still working in Haiti. So for us, thankfully, actually, the impact in a lot of ways has been minimal, although it's the health systems that really have seen the biggest impact. The lack of infrastructure, whether that's laboratories, whether that's transportation of essential medications or vaccines, those larger programs have been really hit hard. I think collaboration is key to overcoming these challenges that we all have now in the global health space. So we work really closely with ministries of health, with other nonprofits working on the ground, with corporate entities to try to bridge some of those gaps. And I would say now more than ever, it's important for us as an organization to be finding partners and not working in silos so that we can make use of the resources that we are sharing. Yes, sir.
We're not a tag team over here.
Okay. No problem.
Thank you for what Kids OR does and what you do as a surgeon for being here. That's obvious.
Thank you.
I'm curious, you just mentioned safety. You glossed over that a couple of times in your remarks, i.e. Ukraine. When you work with a country, do you negotiate some partnership where there's some financial skin in the game from that community or that country? And if there is or isn't, do you negotiate some sort of a security protocol, i.e. Haiti, that we're going to do this, we're going to put our funds and resources and people here, but you gotta have a modicum of protection around our facility. Do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that question comes into play in 2 different ways. So there's like the conflict zone way that that's applied, and then the general work that we do. So before we do any site, we do what's called a case for investment, and we look really closely at the infrastructure of the hospital, the staffing, the patients, the catchment area. We work with the Ministry of Health and the hospital. For us, it's a donation. You know, we remain committed for the lifetime of these ORs, 100%, which are still working right now, through our biomedical engineering support and through training. But we aren't providing the ongoing salaries. We are making sure that the Ministries of Health or the other organizations who might help fund those sites really are committed for the long term, because we don't want to be contributing to short-term interventions, even with the best of intentions. Ukraine is an interesting one, obviously being, it's one of our first projects in a true conflict zone. The reason we picked Lviv was very intentional. It's in the west, it hasn't been heavily bombed, it's been incredibly safe. Overall, if there were to be a 2-state solution, it would likely still remain within the Ukrainian realm, being close to Poland. And so we were very intentional in picking it, wanting to ensure that it was going to have an impact, that it was going to last. And we've worked really closely with the Ukrainian Ministry of Health and the other government officials in the area to do our best. Ultimately, a lot of the sites we work in, like Congo, are conflict zones, but we stay really connected to the teams on the ground. And if we've had to move one, which we did at one point, we moved all of the infrastructure, including solar, so that investment wasn't lost. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Fascinating topic. I'm curious how you're funded. USAID was addressed, but I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking about substantial dollars here. And do you get support from the medical community here, from the instrument makers, things like that?
Yeah, our funding comes from a lot of different places. So to give you a sense of the scale, one operating room, start to finish, renovations, solar, all the biomedical engineering support is an investment of $400,000. So that's taking, you know, a literally crumbling empty room, turning it into this, including the patient wards and everything else. So it's incredibly, I think it's less than a lot of people think sometimes, but it's not a small investment. Our funding comes from a variety of different sources. We were very lucky in the beginning. So we were formed by a philanthropic couple in the the UK. They were initially just going to do one operating room in Uganda, and they did that operating room, and then unfortunately they lost triplets of their own after giving birth. So they were very drawn to the idea that they wanted to be able to provide safe access to surgical care for other families all over the world. So they completely redirected their own philanthropic efforts to forming Kids Operating Room. What that does for us is it takes away the majority of our administrative costs. So salaries are covered as a donation from our founders. Our space is all owned by them. What that means is we can stand in front of a donor and say, this project is where your funding is going to. It's not going to high administrative costs that other organizations might have. We get a lot from trusts and foundations. So we partnered with the Elma Foundation. Bloomberg Philanthropies gave a grant for the Ukraine project. Our fundraising team works incredibly hard to work with individual donors as well. But again, I think we're very lucky where we have some people who are able to invest in terms of a full operating room or maybe half of one. But we really rely a lot on smaller donations from like Bethesda Rotary and individuals because we're not talking about huge amounts. They can actually go quite far. In addition to trusts and foundations, you referred to corporate. So we do have some corporate partnerships. We've been working with Stryker that makes medical devices. We also do get a significant discount on the equipment from Storts. So that's one of our other main suppliers. We're very lucky that our teams in the UK and the US are actively working on the trust and foundations piece. And I think for us, like that and other nonprofits are the biggest part with individual donors serving a very necessary need, but not where we're getting the majority of funding from at the moment.
As a follow-up, what is your operating budget every year?
So the UK, we have the US and the UK. In total, it's about $10 million a year that we've raised. The US has only been in existence for 2 years, and we're the major fundraising arm that's our remit in the US. And we started at 500,000 a year and a half ago, and we'll raise over 2 million this year for projects. So dedicated team making it all happen. Yes.
Doctor, just a wonderfully compelling presentation. Thank you. You touched on the reliability of power. You touched on the availability of oxygen.
Yeah.
What are you doing to assure water purification for sterilization, health, that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that gets back to the point of really working in collaboration with other nonprofits and other organizations. So we've been very lucky in the operating room setting that we can do a lot without water, actually. We have chemical sterilization. We're trying to pair the NASA oxygen generator. The byproduct of that is hot air, which no one wants except we do, right? Because we can sterilize with that. So that's actually a big component of what we're looking to do. We partner with a few different nonprofits and other agencies that are working on the water issues for sure. Mozambique, the pictures I showed you, which is a 10 out of 10 on the need scale. There's a big project going there with a conservation fund. And so we try to find partners who are actively working in those spaces to, again, share resources because, yes, clean water, imperative. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Chung. Appreciate you sharing your time with us today, your insights, obviously your passion. It's a great presentation and a great issue to raise awareness for. All right, upcoming meetings. Remember, you and a guest, if you know someone who you think would be a great addition to our club, please reach out to them about one of our keynote speakers upcoming. You and a guest need to RSVP to Kitty by Wednesday at 9 a.m. Next week, August 28th, we'll have Matt Strawn, CEO of the Iowa Lottery, to tell us what's going on at the Iowa Lottery. And then after that, we have 2 weeks in a row that are sort of out of our usual cadence. So September 4th, as I mentioned last week, Beth Ketz, the University of Iowa Athletic Director, will be here. I am saving front row seats for Josh and everyone else. It's 2 days before the Cyhawk game, so you'll all be tired from Ireland. We'll just put you right here in front. That will be a popular meeting, of course. So as I mentioned last week, we are upping or moving forward the RSVP deadline to the Friday before for guests. So if you have a guest that wants to attend that September 4th meeting, please email Kitty by Friday, August 29th. And we're going to close guest registrations in advance of the Labor Day weekend, so we're not scrambling at the last minute. But we also encourage, even if you're not bringing a guest, please sign up by Friday if you're able to, so that we can get an accurate count for the Embassy Club here. And then the next week after that, September 11th, we can't meet here at the Embassy Club. We will be at Broadlawns Medical Center. The CEO, Proctor Lerman, will be our speaker. They are going to host us graciously, and tours will be available before and after the meeting. Unfortunately, they can only hold up to about 60 people. So we will have, again, an early RSVP deadline for that meeting as well, not only for space, but also catering purposes. Kitty's working very hard to make sure we get it all squared away. So please watch your Friday email signups and the newsletter, of course, for deadlines on those meetings, and keep those on your calendar if you want to attend. So we appreciate your cooperation. I know it's a little bit out of the ordinary, but we appreciate your cooperation in trying to make those meetings run smoothly. All right, so in addition to those great upcoming speakers, don't forget about our a couple of events upcoming for fellowship and for networking. The Rollins Mansion next Thursday, the 28th, will be from 5 to 7. Signups were due last week. However, if you are now just remembering, oh shoot, I didn't sign up, we do have room for a few more people. So you can talk to Kitty. Rollins Mansion's providing space to us for free and some appetizers. There will be a cash bar, and I think we had, as of the other day, 30 plus people or so signed up already. So it'll be a great event for us to network and engage in some fellowship outside of our Thursday meetings. And then the third annual Think Fall event, September 25th. There will be no lunch meeting that day. Again, we can't meet here at the Embassy Club. So that evening, please, if you can, make it out to the Chester Park Nature Center in Granger. Rich Leopold has graciously again allowed us to be there for the third year in a row. It is a fabulous space if you've never been out there. We'll have What You Smokin' Barbecue served by your board members with a smile on. We'll have music by Dan Medeiros. It's a very family-friendly event, so if you and your spouse or kids want to come out, please make it a point to attend that event with us. It'll be a great time. Oh, by the way, on the Think Fall event, we did send out an email. You've probably gotten a lot of emails from the club recently looking for sponsors. We had one sponsor, $500 sponsor already, so we're looking for one more $500 sponsor to help alleviate the costs of that event if you're interested. So look at your email and talk to Kitty or myself about that. All right. All the announcements out of the way. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you again, Dr. Chung, for your presentation and our guests for joining us. You are a vital part of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. So until next time, stay true to the good. Stay true to the good. We are adjourned.